Now, the most live local talk with Melody Burns.
All right, welcome back. It's 4:07 on a Tuesday afternoon. Right now we're going to bring to you somebody who threw himself into the middle of the political arena, Jeff Gildersleeve. And here you are, you're running for Saratoga County Sheriff, Jeff.
How are you, Melody?
I'm good. Are you crazy or what?
A little bit, but
yeah.
You know what? And it's been an adventure, I'll say that. I'm really... There are good days and bad days, just like everything else. But overall, the people that I've met, the people I've talked to, phenomenal, without a doubt. It's one of the reasons Saratoga County is so great. It's a very diverse, nice area. And the communities you go to, I mean, it doesn't matter what town you happen to be in, the people are all really decent people. And I've enjoyed that aspect of it very much.
That's good. But here you're not a politician.
Not at all.
How did you get involved in the race anyway? I mean, what happened? Did you lose a bet? I mean, let's be honest here.
No, it was one of those things that I was put in the back of my head. And I just honestly never thought that Sheriff Bowen would retire. I mean, he's been there 43 years.
Oh, yeah.
And it took me as quite a surprise that when he announced he was retiring. And I thought about it. And I talked it over with my family because they're the ones that are going to be impacted even more than I am.
That's right.
And I talked with some friends that I regard their opinions highly, and stepped into it. I got into it a little bit late. There was a lot of maneuvering at the beginning. One of the guys who had mentioned he was going to run is a very good friend of mine and also somebody who I thought would do a good job. But he stepped back, and at that point I just decided it was time for me to get into it. I think I bring a lot to the table. My training, my experience, some of the things that I've seen, some of the things that I've seen that work and that don't work. And I worked in a task force environment for many, many years assigned to the DEA. And there you're putting a lot of diverse people and diverse agencies in one location, trying to come up with a single mission, and sometimes it's a little difficult getting everybody on the same sheet of music. And that's actually where I retired out of, and I was a supervisor there. And it was, some days were challenging there, but we got the job done, and we did a very good job. I started out at the task force in New York City, which is probably the oldest and most successful federal, state, and local task force in the country. And that's where I cut my teeth, and I moved it on up to Albany, and we did a phenomenal job. I mean, some of the cases that we worked started in small $30 crack buys in Glens Falls and took us to the southwest border. So, I mean, these are the kind of things that we did. These are the things that I was involved in, and I supervised that for a while. And I think by being able to successfully succeed in that mission, bringing all these diverse interests together, to do the job, I think that I can bring that up to the sheriff's office, and hopefully, you know what, a lot of rumors and stuff going around. The people in that department are phenomenal.
How big is that department, by the way?
A little over 100 sworn officers for the road, and then you've got the corrections, you've got civil, you also have communications, a lot of support people, and quite honestly, the support people, they're the ones that keep everything going every day. Corrections is one of the hardest jobs in law enforcement.
What's the budget? Do you know the budget right offhand?
I don't. I'm guessing around $26 million, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It's a substantial budget, though.
Yeah. Well, you do have a jail. You have your own facility, right? Do you know
That's
how many
correct.
people you house in that?
I don't.
Yeah, I was just curious. I've been looking at a number of jails around in different counties to try and figure that out. How many people they're housing and what they're doing and how that is. Craig Apple has that like dorm room effect, where he brings people in from outside. He makes money at that, so that may be an option you could look at.
Although I do know that they've been running at or close to capacity.
Up there in Saratoga?
Yeah. And it's an unfortunate byproduct of, if there's crime and criminals, they have to go somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, Saratoga, you have the racetrack. You have Saratoga County. You have the city of Saratoga, the city of Mechanicville, and you have the racetrack in the middle of that district. What type of crime comes from that racetrack? Don't tell me none, because I'll say you're lying.
Well, I won't say none. You've got unfortunately, as people come into the area, they bring whatever criminality with them that they are normally involved in. A lot of times it's drug-related. A lot of the other assorted crimes, sometimes you'll get the occasional sex criminal, you'll get the occasional burglar, or somebody who's just a knucklehead who goes out, gets drunk, and fights with people.
Oh, sure. Well, you're going to have that anyway. Wherever there's a
Exactly.
bar or wherever there's people, you're going to have that. Yeah.
And, unfortunately, they travel through. They bring their headaches to us, and we have to deal with them.
Yeah.
So, and it runs the gamut from anything from the most petty crimes right on up to the most serious, up to and including assaults, sexual assaults, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question was not as a knock on the racetrack, but because people need to understand that it's different than, say, Albany County, where we don't have that. We don't have this huge migration of people, for a few weeks that have no ties to the community, and then they leave. And so as a sheriff, you may have a huge impact to your budget, or, the way you do things just during that one, time of the year, I would think.
Saratoga Springs PD does a really nice job with the track. They just, they know what to expect, and they plan for it, and they deal with it very well.
Great.
But as they make arrests, they end up in the correctional facility.
Right. So it's an impact to you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that has to be taken into consideration. One of the things I've been talking about, as a matter of fact, is the impact that the gambling casino is going to have, good and bad, on Saratoga County. Casinos are almost like they have the ability to print money.
Right.
But the downside to that is they do attract certainly not all. I mean, you go to any of the casinos, there's a tremendous amount of great people that go there, but there is an element that tends to go to casinos, and they're not there just for the gambling. They're there to lift other people's money.
Right. Extracurricular activities.
Exactly. And these are the things that are going to impact the budget of Saratoga Springs Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, the State Police. I mean, everybody's going to be dealing with it, but ultimately they end up in the Sheriff's Correctional Facility.
Yeah, you have to deal with them.
So
right.
I'm hoping that the powers that be, if this is going to happen, that they sit down with the developers and say, hey, it's going to cost us X in infrastructure, road usage, schools, hospitals, EMS, fire, law enforcement. These are all things that are going to see an increased use and increase in expense. The people in Saratoga County, we want you to make money. Yes, we do, but we also don't want to have to spend the taxpayers' money to support you making money.
Well, yeah, and that's a big point, because this will be a change. It will have an impact to your county when you think about it, and people may be excited about it, but yet there's always that other side, to that. And then how, if they don't think about it, then all of a sudden you submit a budget, and all of a sudden your budget looks huge and inflated because you're accounting for that. And all of a sudden people are like, well, hey, how come the budget's always been like this, and this new guy comes in and the budget's like inflated? So
Sure.
So I just thought that would be an interesting point to think about. So as you come to the table, you're a Marine. It drives me crazy when people say former Marine. You're never a former Marine.
That's true. Once, always.
Yeah, it's just there. That's who you are. You're an investigator, firearms instructor, DEA, as you said. You run SWAT teams. You know what you're doing out there. So you're going to bring all of this into a sheriff's department. And how are you going to deal with people who've dealt with the same guy since the dawn of time, basically, and you're going to come in with new ideas?
I'm not going to sit there and fire lightning bolts from Mount Olympus. I'm one of these guys who likes to sit down with people. Let's talk it over. The things that we can work out through agreeing, I would rather do than fighting every single last point. It doesn't make sense to me. It's counterproductive. Some things, it's human nature. I mean, we'll never be able to agree on everything 100% of the time. But the things we can agree on, I want to get them done quickly. I want to, for me, it's about the people. My training as a Marine, throughout my law enforcement career, it's always been about the people that work for me and taking care of them. And they're a priority to me. And they would be a priority to me. And I would make them understand that. And the things that I would do would help them. But we also have a job to do. And we're responsible to the taxpayers of Saratoga County. And when they call 911, we have to respond.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some times that, we're going to be working when we don't want to be working. We're going to be going out in those bad nights when we don't want to, but we have to, and that's what we're there for. Mm-hmm. And if we have to make arrangements or changes to make that happen more efficiently, then that's what we'll do.
Well, didn't I see like one of your platforms is to actually bring the office up to the 21st century? Don't you have an initiative or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, there's no departmental email, and there's very limited internet access. There's no web page, no Facebook. People that want to contact the department, it's either you get them on the phone or you don't get in touch with them. It's inefficient. I mean, just on the law enforcement aspect alone, if I call another department and say, hey, have you got a picture of, whoever?
Yeah.
We get it emailed to us within seconds. There's no mailing. There's no faxing.
Which is really not that good sometimes.
No. So this is, to me, it's not even a wish list type of thing. This is the minimum you need to do the job these days.
Mm-hmm.
When we start an investigation, one of the first things we'll do is log into social media, and we'll look and see what's there for these guys that we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing what's there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're making the whole case for you without you even doing much of anything. So.
Yeah, pretty much so. They even post the pictures, which is the best part, right?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up.
Well, they are criminals. That nobody said they're smart.
Yeah,
you know
it's true.
Yeah.
But things like that. The other thing I want to look at is there are times when there might be only 2 cars available for calls in the whole county because they're using road deputies to do prisoner transports.
Oh, okay.
Most other counties use corrections to do that. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing, I first saw this when we were doing a federal initial appearance. That's their initial arraignment. And we were down in the southern tier, and a federal magistrate wasn't available, so we took the defendant and put him in front of a monitor, and we did a video arraignment. The magistrate happened to be sitting in, I think, Syracuse at the time. And why can't we do that here? Rather than taking 1 or 2 officers to transport an inmate, God knows where in the county,
Sure.
put him in front of a monitor, get his arraignment, and then walk him back to his cell or release him if that's what the judge wants. You're saving time and money of the officers, wear and tear and fuel expense on vehicles. It makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to say, for example, county court, that's probably not going to happen because that's where you have your more serious charges.
Right.
And the judge is probably going to want to see them in person. But for a lot of these town courts, rather than running them to each corner of the county, wasting time and expense, why not do that if we can?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it is about being efficient, and that is the key in this whole thing. So,
Sure.
yeah. And I like that. Who would have thought that somebody talking about being a sheriff, 21st Century Initiative? That's interesting. All right, we got to do a little bit of weather and traffic right here. It's 4:20, then we'll come back. We'll get back to Jeff. Okay, it's 4:24 on a Tuesday afternoon. I have Jeff Gildersleeve with me. He's running for Saratoga County Sheriff. And we're talking about, first of all, why he's running and why, how is he qualified to run, what he's going to do, if he's going to make any changes. We just went over his 21st Century Initiative, which I was surprised that they don't have email. My God, what do they do? Do they pass notes to each other? I mean, how do they?
I'm not sure how they're getting it done right now.
Just out of curiosity, was it a cost thing? I mean, why? Any idea why?
No idea. None whatsoever.
Because, email's been around, ask Al Gore. He created it, so it's been around for a while.
That's what he's famous for.
Yeah, holy cow. All right, let's go to Colin E. We'll talk to Colin for a minute. Hey, Colin.
Yes, good afternoon, Melody and Sheriff.
Not yet.
Not yet, but working on it, yes. I'm sorry. I am sort of concerned, or I think there's good reason to be concerned about federal government takeovers of police departments, sheriff departments. I mean, every sheriff department or police department is talking about being shorthanded, underfunded. We're seeing towns always talking about being broke. There's towns going bankrupt. And it just seems like it's swinging a door wide open for the federal government to come in and start doing our local policing. So I guess my question to you is, if the federal government came and offered personnel, police cars, offered you were talking about emails, if they wanted to run a communication system for you that included emails, would you welcome them in, or would you say, no, police should be local? I believe police should be local, county, town, so on. I'm wondering how you feel about that, how you feel about the federal government coming in and starting to do local policing and that sort of stuff, street level.
I can tell you that I've worked with numerous federal agencies over the years, and quite honestly, they're as busy as they can be. They have no desire to do local law enforcement. They do offer grants for local law enforcement agencies to do their own thing. Some of that would be communications equipment, but they've never offered to come in and run a communications section. They've never offered to come in and run a department. And I just don't see them doing that because they are very busy doing whatever it is they do. Depends on the agency. They all have their own missions. And it's just not, to me, even a reasonably possible thing. As far as grant money, I would certainly be looking for grant money to pay for some of the things that we want to do. But I honestly don't see that as a possibility.
But if it got greater than that, I mean, if they actually wanted to take some control positions or actually had their own personnel patrolling streets, would you say yes or would you say no?
That doesn't even seem like a reasonable possibility to me. If you're asking me if I'd abdicate my authority to a federal agency, I wouldn't. But the bottom line is it's not something that they would do. Certainly in a civil emergency, to say another hurricane came through and we asked for help, we would accept it, but not in the form of letting them run the department.
There you go. All right, thanks, Colin.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I know that seems to be a question with people. Talk about the law of the land, and I think because of the SAFE Act, the unsafe act, as I call it, because of that, people are now understanding the role of the sheriff a little bit differently than they have in the past. And so they're looking at you to be the law of the land, so to speak. How do you interpret that as being the law of the land? What do you think that? What's your responsibilities with that?
SAFE Act, you mean, in regards to that?
Well, I'm kind of talking everything.
As far as the SAFE Act goes, I'm the only candidate in the race that's come out and said I would not enforce it.
So you would not enforce any of it?
No. You know what? And I always thought that, number one, that any law had to be constitutional. And the Constitution is the law of the land. But the other thing is our system of criminal justice is based on, we would allow a guilty person to go just to make sure that we did not convict an innocent person. That law, in effect, is taking all the innocent gun owners and making them guilty of some law that they came up with in the dark of night. If it was such a great idea, why'd they pass it the way they did?
Right.
The other thing is when do we burden the law-abiding and not the criminals? I mean, this is more of a burden for those who do follow the law than those who don't. And if they think that some guy who's getting ready to go commit a murder, an armed robbery, or some kind of assault with a firearm cares how many rounds he has in his gun or what kind of gun he's using, they're wrong. They don't care. It's just another added charge to the slew that they're going to get hit with when they get arrested. What we need to do is we need to target. Most of the serious crimes are committed by a very small number of criminals. And those are the people that need to be targeted, arrested, and put in prison for a very long time. Now, the other side of that is these acts of, unthinkable evil done by literally people who have lost their minds. We cannot legislate against evil. We'll never be able to do. We'll never be able to do that. It's not like the Minority Report where we can predict future behavior. It's just not going to happen. And if you take away every implement you can think of to make the world safer, they're going to think of another way. I always refer to the Happy Land fire back in the mid-'80s down in the Bronx. That was one of the most heinous mass killings prior to 9/11. More than 80 people killed. It was a gallon of gas and a pack of matches. And that was, a lover spat that went bad.
Yeah.
And evil is evil. And you can't, and again, I mean, this goes back to, do we punish the good to get the bad? I mean, is that how we do this now? I mean, I always thought that we just, we do the best that we can, due diligence, and we go after the bad people, not the good people.
Well, I think things have changed. Or at least we've led to believe, that there has been that change because of that law. And, as you said, a number of people have already committed misdemeanors because they haven't registered. as of the date, and then what'll happen again in January, on the 15th of January, when they have to buy their ammunition and they have to start registering that and all of these milestones.
That's very onerous.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, and interesting if you don't know the law. All right, it's 4:30. We're gonna let Mary come and tell us what's happening. We'll come back. 4:37 on a Tuesday afternoon. I'm here with Jeff Gildersleeve. He's running for Saratoga County Sheriff. We're asking him questions. And before we went to the news, you said something that I had to follow up with. You said that your opponents, and you have two of them, would not enforce, or they would enforce the New York Unsafe Act, but you would not enforce any of it. So can you explain that to me?
Yes, I'm the only one that's come out and said I would not enforce it.
Okay, so you publicly, you did here, but you publicly stated.
Correct.
Okay, and they have stated otherwise?
There's been varying answers. They would enforce it. They'd enforce it on a case-by-case basis. I'm not quite sure where they're at with this, but so far neither one of them has said anything about not enforcing it.
Okay.
All. I'm also the only guy that's I'm a life NRA guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm endorsed by New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. They've been phenomenal with me. Tom King, just what a great guy. The Second Amendment is, to me, very important. As a young Marine, I joined the NRA, and I wasn't getting paid much, so I was doing
of course not, yeah.
doing the annual membership thing. And then back in the early 90s, I actually was able to bite the bullet. And
you did the lifetime?
Did the life thing. So, and you know what? It's unlike what gets painted in the media. Second Amendment people aren't extremists. They believe in what it says.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny. It's all because of a comma in the Second Amendment. It creates this giant argument. And I think the Second Amendment is actually, the entire Constitution is unique in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It makes this country what it is, makes it the great country that it is. And I think the Second Amendment is unique within that unique document. And and Alan Dershowitz, who is no conservative by any stretch of the imagination, but Alan Dershowitz said one time, he said, be careful of what amendments of the Constitution you don't like, because if they take the ones that you don't like, what happens when they decide to take the ones that you do like?
Mm-hmm.
And once you start down that slippery slope, it's a dangerous precedent. And we need to be cautious with that document. It is precious. What we have in this country is precious, and it's unique, and it's just who I am.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me about what people are saying to you when you go to their homes and you're doing door-to-door, because I assume you're doing that, right?
I am.
Yeah. Well, what are they saying? What is the big issues? Because this is different for people in Saratoga County, because they've had a sheriff for so long that this is really the first opportunity where they have a difference.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I'm getting a variety of things from people that I'm meeting with. There's a lot of people that are concerned with the SAFE Act.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that are Second Amendment issue oriented. There's also a lot of people that think it's just time for a change. 43 years of doing things one way. And quite honestly, my opponent, who's a good guy, he is. Actually, both my opponents are.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have two of them. Yeah.
I like them both. They're both really decent guys. Actually, I think I'm a decent guy, but I just think I happen to be better qualified. But you know what? My one opponent is worked within that system for 30-plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not going to be any big change, and that's what they need. They need a big step forward. And again, the personnel within that agency are phenomenal. And I want to be the guy that stands up for them, gives them what they need to do a good job for the people in Saratoga County. And I just think I'm the guy to do that.
Mm-hmm. How are you going to deal with are they a board of supervisors? What runs the county? What is it that runs the county?
Yeah, it's a county board of supervisors.
Yeah. How are you going to deal with that?
They have an expectation of what they want when they dial 911,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to explain to them that in order to get that, they're going to have to provide us with the tools to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm one of those guys who every time I look at my school and property taxes, I kind of get a little excited, not in a good way, and I don't want to do it at an expense to the taxpayers. There are, like I said, there's grant money available. There's drug seizure money that's available. There's there's other avenues to pursue. There are going to be some expenses, but what I would like to do is take them out over years and see if we're going to save money in the long run. Certainly, for example, the video arraignment system. If we had to pay for that over years, you're going to save a lot of money. Just if you think of gas expenses alone, it's crazy.
Well, in the hours, I mean, you're going to look at overtime. You're going to look at all of those things.
Exactly.
Sure.
So, I mean, I think you'd see a quick turnaround on that.
Well, I'm sure you could get a grant for that, though. I mean, because there's some money out there for that.
And I've talked to a friend of mine who actually retired from Albany County about grant writing, and that's what he does. And there's a lot out there. You just need to take a little bit of time and effort and find it.
Yeah, that's true. You know, it's interesting though as a sheriff because there's still like police. There's local police, right?
Yes.
And then there's New York State police, and so you fall in the middle, correct?
Yes.
So how does that work when you're on a scene? I've done ICS, understand them all, 300, 400, done all the levels, you know, all of that stuff. How does that work on a scene? Are you going to feel comfortable, you know, when you go onto a scene with the Saratoga police and they say, you know what, we're going to take the lead on this, not you so much, even though you may be more qualified. And if you're following ICS, should be you, but you know what I mean?
You know what, and I'm really, as far as I'm concerned, is what do we have to do to get the job done? I've worked with so many different agencies over the years. I'm very good friends with the chief of Saratoga Springs PD. I know a lot of the guys in the state police. Pretty much it's going to be one of these things. If it's in the city of Saratoga Springs, it's going to be Saratoga Springs PD. I mean, they're taking the lead, obviously. And if it's out in the county, it's pretty much whoever gets there first. So, but, you know, I'm not fighting over anything to get the job done. If it comes to the safety of the people of Saratoga County, I'm going to do what if it means that we step back and let the state police handle it, because that's what's going to get the job done more quickly and efficiently, because we're worried about the citizens of Saratoga County, that's what we'll do. But I think, quite honestly, a cooperative effort always works better. If we sit down, or if we're standing there and we say, hey, we'll do this part, you do that part, and we're good, we'll run with it. And I'm big into training with multiple agencies, fire, EMS, and law enforcement. And these are the things that, if you train it, work it out in advance.
Yeah, right. That's the secret.
So that when you're in the middle of an emergency, you're not arguing over who's doing what. I'd much rather do that. And it'd be nice to have a protocol in place so that we don't have these kind of problems. And I'm certain, knowing a lot of the state police people the way I do, we could work it out in advance to make it satisfactory to everybody. I certainly don't want to give up any of my authority. I'm sure they don't want to do the same thing. But if we can come up with a plan, an agreement in advance, nothing is more unprofessional than two law enforcement agencies on the side of a road at an emergency arguing over who's in charge.
I have seen that.
I dread it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things when you see it, it hits the media usually, and you can't explain it away. It's ugly. Yeah. And I would never want something like that to happen.
Yeah, it's funny because when I had mentioned something, you know, people were sending me notes about having you on and having everybody else on, and they were asking about a problem in Saratoga County. Apparently, this has been a problem. I'm not familiar with it, but this has been a problem from time to time, and so that's why they were curious how you would handle that.
Not with the guys on the road. I think the deputies, the troopers, the police officers at that level all get along pretty well.
That's good.
They're all professionals. I mean, and they have a job to do. They just do what they have to do to make sure the job gets done.
That's true. All right, it is 4:46. I need to do some traffic and weather. We'll do that. We'll come back. It's 4:51 on a Tuesday. Jeff Gildersleeve is here. He's running for Saratoga County Sheriff. And I think we have his opponent, who's going to be one of his opponents here tomorrow, so we'll talk to him. Jeff, I want to talk to you about drugs, because when I had Albany County Sheriff Craig Apple here,
Craig's a great guy.
Yeah, and I had a question about heroin, because I guess I'm out of the loop. I'm not, really. Well, I don't know how else to say it. I wasn't aware that heroin was so prevalent in the area.
It is.
Yeah, and so you've been DEA, you've done this investigation, so you're pretty much aware on top of this whole drug market. Is there a drug issue in Saratoga County?
There is. I still work up north in the drug unit in Warren County, and it's really bothersome what's going on. We're seeing an increase in prescription drug abuse, and most of them are opiate-based.
Okay.
And I still go into, for example, I go into Burn Hill schools usually once or twice a year, and I give a drug presentation. I've been doing that for years. And this year I revised my PowerPoint, and I focused on prescription drugs and heroin. And what's going on is these kids don't see prescription drugs to be as hazardous as illicit street drugs.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're prescribed by a doctor. You get them from a pharmacy, so how bad can they be?
Yeah.
The problem is that an opiate addiction is a very, very difficult addiction. And when you start getting addicted to the opiates, when you can't find the pills or you can't afford the pills, for example, an 80 milligram Oxycontin would run you $80, about $1 a milligram, whereas you can go buy a bag of heroin for $20.
Yeah,
So,
see, I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. So, and I tell these kids, I said, people that would never in their entire life consider sticking a needle in their arm are doing it because they get that addicted and they need that fix. And it's a very, very painful, very difficult addiction. And we are seeing a tremendous amount of opiates, pills. We're seeing heroin, Suboxone, which is an opiate blocker that they give to addicts. We're seeing that's being diverted a great deal as well. And it's a growing problem. It really is. And the big problem as you go farther north from your while Albany, Schenectady, and Troy are not truly source cities, they are for the North Country. And the profit margin goes up, unfortunately. So what you might pay $10 for here in Albany, you're going to pay $20 for in Glens Falls or Saratoga Springs. And what that ends up doing is it drives they're profit-driven. Drug dealers
right, so they're going to come up there because they can get the money for it.
And that's what they're doing. And that's why we're seeing it. And it's very, very concerning. It's one of those things that it's a head-scratcher because, back in the 70s, the last heroin epidemic, when that ended, everybody kind of took a deep breath and said,
yeah, absolutely.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's over, yeah.
And here we are again, and history repeating itself. So it's one of those things that needs to be addressed very aggressively. And I'm kind of a weird drug cop, and I don't think enforcement is the only answer.
Oh, good.
I think that we need to look at treatment as well. But really where treatment works is very early in the addiction process. Court-ordered treatment almost never works because they're not going there because they want to. They're going there because they got a deal, and they're going to get treatment.
Okay. Sure.
So it's
like the easy way out?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's only when they want to get cleaned up does it work, and even then it doesn't work all that well. But I would rather attack this at the same time, an enforcement thing and a treatment thing, and let's try and prevent as much of this as we can. But we also we can't back off of enforcement because we're going after treatment. So it needs to be a twofold approach, and it needs to be very aggressive because I can tell you that I'm dealing with late teenagers that are addicted to heroin, and that's a real problem.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that. I always looked at heroin as like 20, 30s. You know what I mean? I'm out on the street, down and out. And then when Craig was here, he was like, oh, no, it's come down. It's to the high schools.
It is.
Yeah. So will you have a high school program where you continue to do that once you become the sheriff?
I would like to continue either myself or somebody else. I think it's that important that we talk to kids. And you know what? I don't talk down to them. I don't go in there and lecture. I actually like the give and take of questions, and I like to discuss the issues with them. Because I think they get more out of that than somebody just standing up in front of them and yammering at them for 30 or 40 minutes.
You're right.
And I hope that I give them a little bit more positive feelings about law enforcement, number one, but also about the message I'm trying to bring to them. And I think that's a very critical thing. The other thing I'd like to do, Sheriff York and Under Sheriff Lamry up in Warren County, right after Sandy Hook, we're trying to come up with a way to have a stronger presence for law enforcement in the schools. So they went to every one of the schools in Warren County and said, hey, give us a locking office, a computer and a phone if you can, but just give us a locking office. And throughout the day, when school's in session, our officers are ordered to, at some point, if they have a school in their post, to go in that school. They can go use the office, they can eat their lunch, they can do a report, make some phone calls, wander around the school, and then leave. They're told not to do it at the same time every day. We want the car parked right in front of the school. It's not costing the county a penny.
Right.
And it raised the level of law enforcement in the schools. Certainly, nobody's going to want to spend the money to assign one full-time officer to every school in any county. Saratoga County, there's so many schools, it'd be darn near impossible.
But I like that idea. So you'd have like a visit.
Yeah. And it'd be just a matter of getting a locking officer. And it wouldn't be limited to just the sheriff's office. We'd have the state police or any law enforcement agency would have access to that office and the ability to go in there and just do a report, make a phone call, eat their lunch, whatever. But their presence there hopefully will deter some of these
pretty good
people.
idea. Yeah, pretty good idea. Okay, you got 2 minutes. You want to tell people why they should vote for you on September 10th?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the sheriff's office into the century. I'm going to make it more responsive and responsible to the people in Saratoga County. My professionalism, my training, my experience, I don't think either of my opponents come close to that. The things that I want to do, I want to protect the citizens of Saratoga County. That's what we are there to do, and that's what I will do, and that's our priority. But I also want to do it in a method that's responsive to their needs and their concerns. And if we can't take care of our kids and our elderly, then what good are we? I mean, those are the two segments of society that need the most protection from us. And those obviously, schools especially, are a very big priority for me. The drug problem, that dovetails very much into that as well. The kids are the ones that are feeling the pain of that. And I don't ever see that as a victimless crime. I see the spousal abuse, the pain of families dealing with an addicted parent or child. There's so many things with that. And I'm the guy that's going to make sure that we do this the best way we can do it.
Okay, how do they find you if they want to send you more questions or they want to find out more about your campaign?
Gildersleeveforsheriff.com.
Well, that's easy enough.
Yes, it is.
All right, well, good luck. It's September 10th at Saratoga County Sheriff. It is a primary, remember. You must be registered in the Republican Party to vote in that primary. All right?
That's correct.
All right, we got to do a little bit of news. It's 5 o'clock. Thanks, Jeff, for coming on. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Melody.
Yep, my pleasure.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. We'll do some news with Mary. We'll come right back in a few minutes.